Good evening, and welcome to my third discussion of the Iliad. Today we're going to be talking about the curse of Achilles. I'm going to briefly recap what has happened, simply because if this is your first time watching, I can do like this brief recap so you don't have to spend time trying to watch my other videos. So what has happened is we are in the Iliad of Homer. We are in the 10th year of the Trojan War. The Greeks are fortified next to the beaches and with their ships, and the Trojans are still in their walled city. A plague has descended upon the Greeks, and they're dying in droves. So Achilles, after the 10th day of all of the soldiers dying, he musters an assembly, and he says, what's going on? We must have angered Apollo. We don't, because Apollo rules health. Therefore, we either have to just pack up and leave, or we have to find out what's going on. And we have a soothsayer here, and he can tell us. The soothsayer is hesitant, though, because he's like, if I tell you, then there's people who are going to retaliate against me. And Achilles is like, don't worry about it. I got it. I'm the great warrior. So the soothsayer says that Agamemnon, there was a priest that had showed up trying to ransom his daughter. He was a priest of Apollo. Agamemnon was very rough with him and sent him away. And the priest, in retaliation, prayed against the Greeks to send some horrible plague, which happened. So the soothsayer's response is that the only thing that will take away this plague is by bringing this girl back to her father. In which case, Agamemnon gets all mad, and he tells Achilles he's just going to take his girl. And so that does happen. The troops show up. They take his girl. So now we're at the point where Achilles has lost his girl, his prize. They don't ever call them girls or anything. That's his prize. His spoils of war is this girl, Briseis of the fair cheeks. So he is going along the murmuring sea. And I was listening to a podcast today that I thought was really cool. And it talked about how in the Iliad there's a lot of metaphors and similes and all those literary things that make great literature. And one thing I'd never thought of, here we have Agamemnon, who is just this boasting, loud, just booming voice. He's in command. He can talk. He's the lord of all the different ships, and so he's in command. And then there's the sea, and the sea is this quiet, murmuring sea. It's infinite, and it's just this whole contrast between the man who thinks he's in power versus the sea and its quietness and where the gods dwell. Because whenever any of the Greeks go to pray, they go out to the sea, because to them that's a very spiritual place. And so that's where Achilles is. And of course, this is where his goddess mother is. So we're going to find out what's going to happen here. And I'm excited. All right, so Achilles, weeping, went and sat in sorrow besides the beach of the gray sea, looking out upon the infinite water. Many times he stretched forth his hands, and he called for his mother. Since, my mother, you bore me to be a man with a short life, therefore Zeus of the loud thunder on Olympus should grant me honor at least. But now he has not given me even a little. Now the son of Atreus, the powerful Agamemnon, has dishonored me and has taken away my prize and keeps it. So he spoke in tears, and the lady, his mother, heard him, as she sat in the depths of the sea at the side of her aged father, and lightly she emerged like a mist from the great water. She came and sat beside him as he wept, and stroked him with her hand, and called him by name, and spoke to him. Why then, child, do you lament? What sorrow has come to your heart now? Tell me, and do not hide it from my mind. Thus we both shall know. Sighing heavily, Achilles of the swift feet answered, You know, since you know, why must I tell you all this? And so he recounts the whole story. I'm not going to go through the whole story because we have the full story at this point. So we get down to, all right, this is the part that's important. You then, if you have the power to, protect your own son, going to Olympus and supplicating Zeus, if ever before now, either by word you comforted Zeus by heart or action. Since in many times in my father's halls I have heard you making claims, said that you only among the immortals beat aside the shameful destruction from Croesus' son, the dark misted. You, goddess, went and freed him from his shackles, summoning in speed the creature of 100 hands to tall Olympus. Okay, these are other myths that I'm not going to get into at this point. But basically, there was a great war in heaven between Zeus and all the gods against his father, Cronus, and the Titans and the monsters. And so this is talking about this great war that had happened previously. And so he's just trying to get him to remind his mother that you saved him. You're a great help to Zeus. So now you need to remind him and call in a favor for me, because I need this favor done. Sit beside him and take him by the knees and remind him of these things, and perhaps he might be willing to help the Trojans and pin the Achaeans back against the ships in the water, dying. So thus we may have profit from their own king, that Agamemnon might recognize his madness, that he did no honor to the best of the Achaeans, meaning himself, of course. Theseus answered, and letting tears fall, Ah me, my child, your birth was bitterness. Why did I raise you? If only you could sit by your ships, untroubled, not weeping, since your lifetime is to be short, of no length. Now it has befallen to me that your life must be brief and bitter beyond all men's. To a bad destiny I bore you in my chambers. But I will go to the cloud-dark Olympus and ask this thing of Zeus, who delights in the thunder. Perhaps he will do it. Do you therefore continue to sit by your swift ships and be angry at the Achaeans and stay away from the fighting? For Zeus went to the blameless Ethiopians yesterday to feast. And so speaking, she went away from that place and left him sorrowing for the sake of the fair girdled woman whom they were taking by force against his will. So I'm going to just stop there real quick. Because it now changes the scene to Odysseus, and I'm actually not going to talk about that, because what he is asking of his mother is to support the Trojans. So he's so mad that this happened that he's willing to let his own people die. He's willing to let his own friends die. So this is where, it's I want to almost call this episode, Be Careful What You Wish For. because it will happen. So the Greeks really believed in prayer, in that if you're going to ask for something, you better be prepared for the consequences of it. And this is a far-reaching prayer, because what this is going to unleash, and what this is why in the beginning we have the rage, yes, singing of the rage of Achilles and its devastation. So this rage that he is starting in this moment is going to be put thousandfold upon the Achaeans and hurled their multitudes into the house of Hades. This is that moment, because he is so enraged that he's willing to let his own people die. And because Thestis is a god, so Thestis is a goddess of the silver feet, and I just assume she's a mermaid. She lives in the sea, so I assume she's a mermaid, because why not? But she has a direct line to Zeus. So this is a prayer that not only will it be heard, but it will be doubly heard, because it's from a goddess. And here's the thing, that when she goes up, and I'm not going to get into this either, but when she goes up there and she begs Zeus for this, there's silence, because Zeus knows what's going to happen. Like the gods know things that the humans don't know. The humans will ask for things, and sometimes the gods will grant it, but they know what these prayers, or what is living inside their heads, what it will do. It's like the prayer makes reality, because the gods hear the prayers and make the reality happen. So Zeus is quiet, and the first words out of his mouth is the word devastation, because he knows what. Now, not only is Achilles going to unleash devastation on the Greeks, but in the end, because what's going to happen up in Olympus is there's going to be a big fight going on with all the gods. And this is going to it's just going to be chaos. And then the Trojans will still, Troy is pretty much predestined to be destroyed. So Troy will be destroyed anyway. But what Achilles is doing is he's already making the pain be worse on both sides. And this is like a civilization ending rage. The whirlwind of this. So I wanted to talk to you also a little bit about the idea of divinity in Greek poems, because there's a lot of characters that are divine, and for, you know, we live in a Christian world, and for us this is very unusual for there to be people walking around that also happen to be sons and daughters of God. And that's very unusual for us. We, you know, as a Christian, you believe that only there's Jesus Christ is the Son of God. In Greek world, there were lots of sons, and there's two in this book itself. There's two what you would call a demigod, or what you would call a half mortal, half god. One of them is Achilles, and the other one actually is Helen. Helen is the daughter of Zeus. And so it doesn't make you better than anyone, it does make you more dangerous. That's how it kind of feel like with the demigods. They all seem to be a lot more dangerous. Like the consequences of what they do are more devastating than the consequences of what ordinary people do. Like Helen is a devastating beauty. She's a terrible beauty. She is not just the face that launched 1,000 ships. When men see her, they want to kill to be with her. That is how dangerous her beauty is. It's that compelling. It's that dangerous. So she has far-reaching consequences over her own mortality, but she's still mortal. Like, she's mortal and Achilles is mortal. Now, Achilles, there's also this idea of fate, okay? The Greeks believe heavily on fate. They used to get oracles, either from the Oracle of Delphi. They would get an oracle about your birth. Like, when you were born, they believe there's 3 fates, and one spins the web. One makes the thread of life. One spins the thread of life, and then one cuts the thread of life. And this happens the moment that you're born. So there's no, once it started, there's not really, you can't escape that fate. There's no way to escape it. Even Zeus, who is a god and he is immortal, cannot escape his fate. Just as he overthrew his father and killed him, he knows that one day he will be overthrown. And so he's always on the lookout. And for someone who might, one of his children that might overthrow him. So he's always suspicious of his children. And Achilles, so Thestis had a prophecy about her that said, whoever is her child will be double in strength of the father. So Zeus knew he could never be with Thestis, even though he wanted to. So he went to Peleus and said, hey, you want this cool mermaid girl? Go get a net. We'll catch her. And then you can have yourself a wonderful wife. And I don't understand how it works back then. But apparently it worked. And so she had that prophecy over her. Now, Achilles had a prophecy over him, which said he had 2 destinies. One was that he was going to die in battle and that he was going to have a glorious but short life. And he'll be immortal forever, like forever and ever. The second one was he was going to die anonymously as a farmer back in Greece. And so those were his 2 destinies that were given to him. And so he chooses glory over being anonymous. So that's a kind of a big fate thing that the Greeks believe in. And this is why in a lot of Greek plays and stuff, there's always the child of fate is usually left on a mountaintop to be exposed and die, because they'll get a bad prophecy and then they'll have to get rid of the kid. But the kid always lives. At least in Greek plays, they always live to fulfill their destiny. It's always a bad destiny. All right. So, how am I doing on time? Okay. So now he goes, we're still in book 1. All right. All right, so now Thestis is up in Olympus, and they made their plans separated. Thestis leapt down again from the shiny Olympus to the sea's depth. But Zeus went back into his own home, and all the gods rose up from their chairs to greet the coming of their father. Not one of them had the courage to keep his place as the father advanced, but stood up to greet him. Thus he took his place at the throne, yet Hera was not ignorant. Now Hera is the wife of Zeus, so she knows that Thestis was there. Having seen how he had been plotting counsels with Thestis, the silver-footed, the daughter of the sea's ancient, and she at once spoke angrily to Zeus. Treacherous one, what god has been plotting counsels with you? Always it is dear to your heart in my absence to think of some secret thing and decide upon it. Never do you have patience, frankly, to speak forth to me the thing that you propose. All right, so they get in this huge fight. All right. And so Hera's always mentioned as the ox-eyed Lady Hera. So she is the goddess of family and marriage. And it's kind of funny that she's also the ox-eyed because in Egypt, the goddess, I'm trying to remember the goddess name, but the goddess of, I think it's Hathor. The goddess Hathor is also known as a cow and also a human. So they kind of switch from cow to human. And she's also the goddess of fertility and of marriage and so it's they kind of, back in the day, they kind of intermingled a lot of these gods and goddesses with the cross cultures. So what might be represented as a cow in one culture might be an actual goddess in another culture. So Hera, it sounds a little bit like Hathor because both the H sound, but I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know actually, but oh, so they have this large fight, and I guess I could talk about the gods a little bit. So they have this large fight until Hephaestus, sorry, terrible with Greek names. Hephaestus, he is the god of blacksmithing, and he is the son of Hera and Zeus. And when he was born, he was supposedly so ugly that Zeus was mad, and he threw this kid off of Mount Olympus. But of course, he's a god, so he's immortal. So he is now all crooked and stuff. But he's so he kind of intervenes here to just say, "Mom, you gotta shut up. You know what Zeus is capable of." And as he spoke, the goddess of the white arms smiled at him, and smiling, she accepted the goblet out of her son's hand. Therefore, beginning from the left, he poured drinks for the other gods, dipping from the mixing bowl of the sweet nectar. But among the blessed immortals, uncontrollable laughter went up as they saw Hephaestus bustling about the palace. Thus, therefore, the whole day long, until the sun went under, they feasted, and nor was anyone's hunger denied a fair portion, nor denied the beautifully wrought lyre in the hands of Apollo, or the sweet sound of the muses singing. Afterwards, when the light of the flaming sun went under, they all went away, each to sleep in their own home. For each one was crafted by the strong hand Hephaestus had built a house by means of his craftsmanship and cunning. And Zeus the Olympian and Lord of the Lightning went to his own bed, where he lay when sweet sleep came upon him. So the way that the Greeks envisioned the gods was that they had this huge palace, and that they spent all their day feasting and drinking, and they would get messages from Hermes, and then they would go running around and they would hear prayers. And so it's a really interesting way to think about it. They're immortal. The lives of humans to them is so incredibly short that but they love to interfere and come in and out and listen to prayers, and sometimes they give prayers and sometimes they don't give prayers. Like their idea of Hades, which is Hades is a place, plus Hades is the god that rules the place. So their idea of death, for the Greeks is there isn't really you just get kind of trapped underneath as like a ghost, and you just kind of like waste away in the dark. It's kind of there's no like heaven or hell. You're just kind of all in the same place. The only place that is special in hell is Tartarus, which is where all of the immortals have been locked. So the Titans and all the monsters from the war are locked in Tartarus, and Hades is in charge of making sure they stay there. And then he's also in charge of all the dead souls. So there's a lot of myths about all of these things that are not mentioned in this book. And that's why one of the things that I want to, when I do these discussions, I want to kind of try to open this world out a little bit. It's kind of hard because there's so many stories that that might not necessarily pertain to this work here, but it does help with the world building, because the Greeks believed in certain things. They pass these stories on from one generation to another generation, and so they're very well known in their own world and their own culture. Thank you. And next week we'll go on to book 2, because I think we're at a good stopping point. Thank you.